We're live. Mike Nellis, you're talking. We're live. It's the introduction. Hey, thank you for joining us today. Mike, we're a little bit late because we're all busy. I'm doing stuff on the mayor's race in New York City.
Yeah.
So why don't we start there? How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing good.
So
Yeah.
why don't we start with the mayor's race in New York City? Do you think that this was a shocker? I mean, if you live in New York City over the past couple of weeks, you kind of had an idea that Zohran Mamdani could win. Andrew Cuomo, of course, household name, big name recognition, leading in the polls until a couple days ago. So what do you think this means? And then, everybody's saying what does this mean for the Democratic Party?
Yeah. Well, I did think he could win, so I wasn't surprised that he won. I was surprised that he won basically on the first ballot. And obviously, like, he hasn't officially won, but Cuomo's conceded. The expectation is in the future rounds he's going to win. I think that he ran a hell of a campaign, and we should just start there, which is he met people where they were. He was out there on the street. He was laser focused on affordability and things that are going to make a meaningful impact on people's lives. And that's hyper impressive to me because the Democratic Party has not been able to get beyond its ability to talk about a myriad of different issues, chasing Donald Trump's coattails, talking about stuff that isn't impacting people's lives. And Zohran was able to do it. And I think the fact that he did it, given the fact that he was massively outspent, is a huge accomplishment. And his team should be very proud. And I think his supporters should be very proud.
So what does it mean for the Democratic Party? Because, so I've been saying for a while since the campaign, and then we'll get to the Andrew Cuomo of it all.
Yeah.
But I've been saying since even during the campaign that Democrats thought perhaps that they should be safe, that they should somehow become Republican light. And I've been noticing that what the people in the streets want, the streets are talking, what the streets are saying is that we want more progressive policies. We want universal health care. And I think the party wants to lean into more progressive, but I don't think in a crazy way, that's been defined by the Republican Party. But I think that's what the people want. Is this an indication of that? And to Democrats, like, hey, you need to do where the party wants you to go, where the party wants you to take you.
Yeah. Well, I think let's be clear about this. Let's not overreact to one primary victory. And doesn't mean there aren't things to take away, but you have a confluence of things. First of all, you have Zohran Mamdani, who is one of the best politicians I've ever seen, running one of the best campaigns I've ever seen that had a good, what I call it, candidate alignment, right? So the right man at the right moment with the right team, knows how to communicate in the current environment, which is good. You have him running against one of the worst possible candidates in Andrew Cuomo, who is a serial sexual abuser, running a very lazy, misaligned campaign. Like, he acted like he lived there when he didn't. He acted like he deserved the job and he didn't earn it. And New Yorkers like to see you earn it. They want you to show up and do the job. You're not just going to walk in. And then on top of that, you have ranked choice voting, which created a lot of coalition building. And Zohran was able to benefit from that. So there's a confluence of things there, not to mention the fact that New York City has public financing of elections, which levels the playing field for a lot of those candidates, and that's stacked on top against Cuomo because everybody basically hated him. That Brad Lander endorsement, I think, was significant, and I hope that Zohran gives Brad Lander a key role in the administration because he's gonna need a little bit of help to govern if he wins the general election. And by the way, general election, not a lock. Eric Adams is going to run. I think Adams has a chance to win. And we should get into that at some point.
Yeah, we will.
I also think Cuomo.
Table that. Hold that thought. Yeah, because we have a lot. I said we're going to get into Cuomo of it all, and then Eric Adams. Yes, go on, though.
But what it means for the Democratic Party is, I think it's, one, the establishment is not going to get to choose who our candidates are anymore. And I think if you were someone who was sitting at home thinking, I have something better to offer than my member of Congress, than my city council member, than my mayor, you should run and take that risk, particularly if you are young and you can connect with people and you have something interesting to say. That's the number one thing. That doesn't mean that Zohran and his style of politics is going to work in Michigan or in Wisconsin or in Arizona, but it means that there is a generational disconnect between what our leaders think we want and need versus what people actually want. And so I'm thinking for Mallory McMorrow in Michigan, who's a client of mine running for United States Senate, she fits the same mold of the establishment is trying to put the thumb on the scale for their candidate, and Mallory is out there doing the work, meeting people where they are, connecting with them, talking about issues that are resonant and salient to their lives. I want to see more Mallory McMorrows in this election. I want to see more Jake Rakoff, who's primarying Brad Sherman in California right now. Young people that are stepping up. And I think that's what Zohran tapped into more than anything with that laser focus on affordability. Now, there's a lot of lazy takes. If you listen to Republican operatives, they're going to tell you that New York City is now a socialist state. Democrats just lost the midterms. The average voter, it's ridiculous. The average voter doesn't give a shit who the mayor of New York City is.
Have you seen the New York Post? Right? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I saw it on your show earlier. Actually, I was watching it.
What are you going to expect? I mean, that's what you get from the New York Post.
That's right. Well, by the way that I screenshotted that and said to the person who helps me was like, please get me set up so that I could show screenshots of stuff when I'm going live. I was super jealous of your setup there. But so there's none of that. And then on the flip side, like, DSA Bernie wing is like, Bernie wing's taking over the whole Democratic Party. We're going to have a liberal Tea Party. I'm like, no, we're not. There's no evidence of that either. Like, there would be other races where we would see that here. For instance, Abigail Spanberger had no problem winning the nomination for Virginia governor in that race. Mikey Sherrill had no problem winning that. And there were plenty of leftist candidates in that. So again, Zohran is right man, right moment, right team in the right place with everything lining up. An amazing win. It's just like AOC, was that 8 years ago when she won that primary against Ed Crowley. It's a great moment, but we shouldn't overcorrect to it. The real lessons are we need authenticity from our candidates. We got to get laser focused on improving people's lives. We got to meet them where they are and do the work. And if you do that, you can win.
Yeah. By the way, if you're watching Mike and I, you like this conversation, even if you don't like it, make sure you smash the hearts on the screen so people can become aware of the conversation. We're sorry we're a little bit behind today. Okay, so all right, great. Now, this is crazy. People have told me that I should run for mayor of New York City. They also told me that I should run for president. I'm like, neither of which I want to do. But I've actually I actually used to run around Manhattan when I used to jog and think about being the mayor of New York City. And everyone says, you don't want that job. That's a very, very tough job. It is a tough job. So I digress, but it is a tough job. And I'm glad you mentioned Brad Lander because I think experience does count. And I think Brad Landers will offer some of that and just knowledge of how the city works. And he can actually help Zohran Mamdani if he does win.
Well, and on that point for a second, there's this other narrative out there that Zohran is Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, who has been in my city an absolute disaster. And he's got an 18% approval rating. He's a very poor leader. He is from that DSA mold, but I have seen more political savvy from the way that Zohran has managed and run his campaign through coalition building that makes me believe that when he gets in office, he's going to focus on getting shit done, not so much the purity politics of what got him there. And I think he's shown a very pragmatic core of how to build a coalition. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to build that relationship with Brad Lander, the relationships that he's built with the Jewish community, and a lot of outside forces tried to spend money to rip that coalition apart. I think he's more like Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, who has a 62% approval rating and is generally speaking beloved in the town. He focused heavily on local issues, transportation, the economy, creating jobs, helping people, build a coalition, won her primary, and is in a very strong position for her reelection campaign this year. So there's different models for where to go from here. And again, that assumes that Zohran wins the general election, which is not a gimme, but I do think he's probably favored. But when he gets in, if he can govern appropriately, it becomes a model for like how you can govern a major democratic city successfully. Because right now we've got a lot of examples of how not to do it, particularly Chicago. And I just see a lot of savvy from him, so it gives me some hope. Even if I disagree with him on some major issues, which I do.
You say in spite of the purity politics that got him there, what did you mean by that?
Well, I think that the left, the DSA part of my party, my coalition, and I'm not like a moderate. I'm not really a progressive. I tend to just be really pragmatic in my own personal politics. But like, there are a lot of purity politics I find from DSA folks that I meet and know who are like, if you disagree with me on this one issue, I'm going to cast aside you coalition wise. And you saw a lot more pragmatism from Zohran, where he was like, we disagree on some stuff, but what we agree with is that Andrew Cuomo is the wrong leader for this moment. What we agree with is building roads and fixing some bridges and getting some stuff done and improving people's lives. And if we can do that, that shows me a leader much like Obama who would focus on trying to bring people together and get stuff done. And we need a lot of that right now. We don't have a lot of leaders like that.
A lot of Obama comparisons to Zohran.
Yeah.
I asked if you saw the show this morning. I asked, and people were like, "No, we love him, but he's not Barack Obama. Let him be Zohran."
Yeah. And I think that's right. I mean, I get a lot of candidates who call me when they want to work together and they go, "How do I become the next AOC?" And I'm like, "You don't.
You
You
don't.
want to become the next you." And so I think to Zohran's point, it's I always when I worked for Kamala Harris, there were times when her staff would go, "Why does Beto O'Rourke have bigger social engagement numbers than we do?" And I was like, "Well, Beto's doing a lot of stuff that's interesting to people, that's true to him." And there's an infamous video of Beto eating a Whataburger on a skateboard, like rolling down. It's infamous to me, at least. And I would always say, I can't put Kamala Harris on a skateboard and wheel her down while eating a Whataburger. Um, but I can find the things that Kamala Harris is interested in that connects and resonates with people. I think the same is true for all my candidates. I want to figure out who you are, what makes you tick, why do you resonate, why'd you get elected, why do people want to follow you, and then turn that into a digital brand identity. And Zohran has probably done that better than any candidate I've seen in quite a while, maybe since John Fetterman's Senate campaign, I think did a really good job with that. John Hickenlooper's did a good one.
Maybe since Obama.
Maybe since Obama. But you're right. He's not Barack Obama. I mean, he's 32.
Yeah.
He's even younger than Obama, which is crazy to me.
Yeah. But look, people used to think social media didn't matter. When I was in legacy media, initially they said, oh, listen, social media doesn't mean ratings. You have a big social media following doesn't necessarily mean ratings.
Right.
I think that that's changing now. I think that social media did help. He is I wouldn't say a social media creation, but it certainly did not hurt.
I don't think he's a social media creation because he didn't have a lot of money to start. You can't build an audience like that without having some spark that ignites the fire. And I tell my candidates all the time,
But it
I
gave
don't
him an
need
outlet, an opportunity when you talked about the money to advertise himself without having to spend money on big media. So
Yeah,
that's
but
what I mean by that.
he still has to have that spark. And I think that there's a quote from like a centrist House Democrat that was anonymous. I hate anonymous quotes, by the way. It's my least favorite thing that Democrats do all the time. But it was like, I hate that the base of this party only gets excited about socialist candidates and their policies that we can't get done and blah, blah. And I was like, why don't you offer people something new? Why don't you be interesting? I think you can be a moderate and interesting. Obama was basically a moderate and interesting. And people believed that he was going to fight for them when the chips were down. The problem with the moderate establishment wing of my party, and I work for a lot of them, is they don't want to do anything interesting. They don't want to take a risk. They don't want to go on a show where they're going to get asked a tough question. And they just want people to show up for them when they need to show up for their constituents, for the audience. So Zohran's got this dedicated base of people who were fired up, these connections that he's been building over the course of his career. Now social media can help you amplify that, where you don't need corporate media to sort of show off, where you can't just buy a race like Andrew Cuomo wanted to buy this race, but you still have to have it. You have to have that community. You need 10,000 people that are going to run through a brick wall for you in order to get to 1 million, in order to get to 10 million people in order to win an election.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of, by the way, there's lots of establishment politicians who have that. Adam Schiff has that. Adam Schiff has millions of people now who would run through a brick wall for him because they've seen him fight for them to protect democracy, to fight for a better economy. Like those models exist, and it's not exclusive to left or right, moderate, progressive, Bernie, Kamala, Hillary, like whatever. It's who can throw a punch and who can connect and who gives a shit and how does that translate on screen.
What is it, Murphy? Is it Chris Murphy? Does he
Yeah,
have that? Does he have that sort of thing where that
I
people
think
will run
he's
through a brick wall?
I think he's getting there. I think he's got his people who would run through a brick wall for him. I don't
Yeah.
know that I'm one of them. I worked for Chris a long time ago. I always liked him. Um, but I think there's lots of candidates. I mean, AOC has it for sure. That's obvious. I think Gretchen Whitmer has a lot of people that run through a brick wall for her. I think Cory Booker has it. I think Robert Garcia, who's now the chair of the oversight committee for the Democrats, like he's got his little group of people. I would run through a brick wall for Robert Garcia. I think he's one of our better leaders. And I think people are going to get a chance to see what that looks like. So
Here's the weird thing for me being here in New York City. And people talk to me a lot, obviously. They just walk up to me on the street. Either I'm asking them questions or they're stopping me, talking to me about it, or I'm having dinner with people. There's a weird sort of, I don't know if I want to qualify this as weird. I want to say it the right way, Mike. So don't judge me, Mike, and audience.
you're good.
But I have been saying, as I said, since the campaign that, the Democrats need the people in the party want more AOC, right? They want more Bernie. And not necessarily, I don't know if they should be at the top of the ticket, but they want them out there and at least present. And they want them to, elevated. And so there are folks who say, you're crazy would be the worst thing. You really want to drive people away from the party. Now, these are the same people who said, I don't want Zohran Mamdani to be the mayor of New York City because of all these woke things. And they're Democrats who are saying this. And they're really nervous about it. And so those people, I believe, you tell me if I'm wrong, can and will vote for Eric Adams, even if they don't like his policies, because they don't want that from the party that they're in.
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I think we shouldn't write off the idea that
I've had people text me this morning saying, as much as I hate Eric Adams, I would vote for him over Zohran, and a number of them Jewish people.
I think, yeah, and I think two things. One, Adams can absolutely win, and I want to make that super clear because I think all the celebrating last night should be sobered up a little bit this morning by the fact that there's a real general election fight. But a lot of what happens from here is going to be about how Zohran responds to this moment. Does he reach out and go into those communities and build those connections? Based on everything I've seen, he will do that. Because if you look at the exit polling that's out, and who knows how accurate it is, but let's assume for the sake of the argument it is. Zohran did very well with people who make over $100,000. He did very well with people who made $50,000 to $100,000, but he lost people who made less than $50,000.
Isn't that crazy when he's the affordability candidate?
But it makes sense to me because if you're someone who's living paycheck to paycheck, you are extraordinarily pragmatic in your politics, and you're showing up every day going, who's going to make things cheaper? Who's going to help me? Who's not going to raise my taxes? And usually those folks are working. I don't want to like cast a wide net on people, but a lot of folks are working multiple jobs. They're not paying attention. They can't afford to pay attention because they're so busy. So I think that it makes sense. And if you look at it, there's similar numbers to how Kamala Harris performed nationally in the last election. We won people over 100K. We won people in the middle of that. And we got creamed with people who are making less than 50K. So Zohran's got work to do to win those people back. But I think he can do it. It's going to be a question of like how his campaign reacts. And again, Eric Adams is a very corrupt member of the Democratic Party, if you would even consider him a Democrat anymore, now that he has the kind of unholy alliance with Trump. I could see it happening. I don't know that it's likely, but I think it could happen.
This Lemon Drop is brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. You know, it is summertime, lots of campfires, lots of late night conversations. Everybody's going to be sharing their story. But lately, one group is trying to control the whole story, claiming that the U.S. was founded as a Christian nation and pushing their religion into classrooms, into courtrooms, and even into your doctor's office. In Arizona, voters there just protected abortion rights in the state constitution, but politicians are trying to undermine it anyway. Texas is pushing bills to force the 10 Commandments into every public classroom. Seriously, they're trying to do that. And in Congress, a bill just passed to strip Medicaid coverage for gender-affirming care for all ages. This isn't about personal beliefs. This is about power. And it's all happening under the banner of Christian nationalism. That's where the Freedom from Religion Foundation comes in. They have been defending church-state separation since 1978. They've been doing it in the courts. They've been doing it in schools and wherever religion tries to take the wheel. So if you believe that government should serve everyone and not just the religious right, make sure you join them. Go to ffrf.us/freedom, or you can text my name to 511-511 and become a member today. So join them. Go to ffrf.us/freedom or text Don, D-O-N, to 511-511 now, because the only story that should run this country is ours and not theirs. Text fees may apply.
Did you see him on Fox and Friends
Adams?
this morning?
Yeah. No, I did not.
Okay.
I don't watch Fox and Friends, Don. I don't know what you think my media consumption is like.
I need it for content. Okay, here we go. I want you to listen.
I only watch Don Lemon in the morning. That's it.
Is this the mic you're picking me up on? Or is it this over here? I think it's this one. Anyways, you ready for this? Tell me if you can hear it.
All right. Okay.
It's not just defund.
Hang on 1 second.
Democratic socialist.
Can you hear that?
He wants city-run.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, here we go.
It's not just defund the police. This candidate, Democratic socialist, he wants to freeze the rent. He wants city-run grocery stores, social workers to replace the police because that's going to help. He wants $60 billion of debt fund for affordable housing. He wants free buses, no cost for childcare, baby baskets for newborn, and a $30 minimum wage. How can someone vote for this?
He's a snake oil salesman. Mm-hmm. He will say and do anything to get elected. Think about this for a moment. He wants to raise 1%. He wants to raise tax on 1% of New York's high-income earners. As the mayor, you don't have the authority to do that. You know who has the authority to do that? An assemblyman, which he is. He wants to do free buses. He could have done it at assemblyman. He doesn't understand the power of government and how you must making sure you improve your economy, raise the standard of living. And this is what we've done in the city. And I'm looking forward to being on the campaign trail and showing New Yorkers we can't go backwards. And New Yorkers never surrender or quit. I'm never going to quit for the city that I love.
That is so interesting. You're in the position, so you know.
So I have a couple of reactions to that. I don't like Mayor Adams. I do think though he's one of the most interesting politicians I've ever seen. If you just follow his personal life, the guy is interesting at minimum. So one, I think it's a hell of a thing for him to accuse Zohran of being a snake oil salesman when he made a deal with Trump to get rid of his bribery charges, where he was taking bribes from the Turkish government. So, let's be clear about snake oil salesmen. Eric Adams is out to do one thing, and that's to enrich Eric Adams, period. His biggest accomplishment in the city, and it's not unimpressive, but he basically invented the trash can, which, and don't get me wrong, the trash problem in New York City is real. It's one of the reasons I live in Chicago is in New York City. But he doesn't have the pedigree of success, and much of his time has been a sideshow. Now, I want to talk about that long scrolly thing because Fox loves to do this. They'll put this long scrolly stuff of out of context policies that they say the guy supports. And one that popped up there was he wants to replace cops with social workers. That's not actually true. And I think it's a misunderstanding of what the policy is. And Zohran's going to have to do a good job of explaining this stuff because things like defund the police have become very unpopular in the way, especially in the way that it's been framed, the way that it's been allowed to be framed. But cops with social workers actually makes a lot of sense because right now we're asking cops to do too much and to be too many things. And we're asking them to go into situations where they're heavily armed to de-escalate a situation where we maybe need a social worker or an expert to do that. We also ask teachers to do too many things. I think we do this to public workers a lot. So there's a nuanced conversation. And what I've seen from Zohran's campaign is an understanding of how to talk about these things in a new and interesting way. And beyond that, you know what I didn't hear from Eric Adams? Any plan to make the city of New York more affordable. Mm-hmm. Help improve people's lives. And Zohran has been laser focused on that. I think if he stays and plays that game, he will win.
So I heard Reverend Al Sharpton on this morning, I think it was Morning Joe, and he said, he's a fan of Zohran Mamdani, so don't get me wrong, but he said that let's see what happens in the general, because he's like you, he says it's not a lock. He goes, and Eric Adams is a different kind of candidate than Andrew Cuomo. And so, it depends on what kind of candidate Eric Adams is. So do you agree with that? I'm not exactly sure what he meant. Maybe it's that Eric Adams will go to the gutter. I don't know. I don't know what he means by that, but I do believe that Eric Adams has a shot, and I believe that some people who don't like the progressive policies, even if they're Democrats, will vote for Eric Adams. Or if Andrew Cuomo runs, I don't think he will because he seems wounded. Yeah. Does he have a better shot in the general, maybe? And then because he can realize, like, hey, I got to actually get in this and fight.
I'd want to see some polling because I just haven't looked at a poll for the general election. Not that polling is super accurate. All the polling in this race was like wildly wrong, vastly underestimated Zohran. The thing about a guy like Mamdani here is he's going to bring in unconventional voters who don't usually participate. And that's a big part of the reason the polling was wrong. So if he can continue and expand that momentum in the general, I think it's going to be hard for Adams no matter what he does. And then if Zohran can cut into the places where he has struggled, I mean, Cuomo's base was amongst Black New Yorkers. He did very well with Black New Yorkers. And he's going to need a lot of surrogates to come in and speak up for him. And he's going to have to go address some of the toughest concerns that community has about him on policing, on the economy. And Adams is going to run a sleazy, slimy campaign. I believe that in my core. Like, he is the sleaziest, slimiest politician I've seen in quite some time. He's going to take some of the worst of what Cuomo tried to do in this primary and see if he can layer it in. Now, whether or not he can win a three-way race between the two of them and the Republican candidate, Chris Silwa, I think is his name, And then
Curtis Sliwa.
Curtis Sliwa. See, I was close. I don't track the Republicans as much as I should.
You're young. If you don't remember Curtis Sliwa, you're a baby. But go on.
I don't know. I'm 37. Who is he? Why should
Curtis
I know?
Sliwa was the Guardian Angels in New York City. Started back in the 80s. They used to wear the red uniforms. I forgot. Lisa Sliwa, I think her name was Lisa, was his wife. And they were this couple. They would wear the berets. And basically they were sort of like unofficial police officers and security people in New York City. So it was kind of like this group, not necessarily a gang, but they were, guardian angels. They'd watch over the city. Yeah. And so he's been around forever. Yeah.
No, I have no idea who he is. So I'm really glad that you're making me feel young for a moment, because I'm gonna go on a tangent for a second. But I was at an event and I was talking to these young Democratic Party organizers, and this young woman asked me, "How'd you get your start in politics?" And I was like, "Wow, I dropped out of college to go work for Barack Obama in 2007, and I was in the Iowa caucus." And her response was, "Wow, I read about that in my history class." I have never felt older in my entire life. It was horrible.
Well, what about when people come up to me and they are grown? They go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm meeting you. I grew up watching you." And I'm like, "How old are you?" "Oh, I'm 28. I'm 35. I'm like, I'm freaking old.
I mean, I just think about all the times I watched New Year's Eve with you, simultaneously getting a little lit up at the same time.
Everybody wants a New Year's Eve. This was Curtis Sliwa and the Guardian Angels back in the day.
Oh my God. It's the same vibe as Kevin Bacon's character in Animal House, where he's like that really like uptight ROTC guy, but he's kind of like a loser.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. But anyway, I think back to the actual topic at hand. I do think this is going to be a fight, but I think if Zohran does the work, he's going to get there. And there's plenty of things to go at Adams for, but there's a question of, what does the Democratic establishment do in this race? Because Hakeem Jeffries didn't endorse, Chuck Schumer didn't endorse anybody. And I think there's this idea that the establishment was trying to lean on Cuomo, but for the most part, the major players in the establishment stayed out of it. Do they stay out of it altogether and just let the people in New York decide, which I think would be okay? Do they come in and get behind Zohran? Do they decide to get him behind Adams? Those are real questions that I'm kind of interested in. And there's a few like complimentary statements out there from like Chuck Schumer and from Governor Hochul, and they're not endorsements, but they're very like kind statements towards Zohran and his work. So it seems like they're signaling that they're open to working with him and they're open to endorsing him, but there's some work that has to go into it. So that's some interesting kind of micro politics that has to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Do you think he can implement the policies that he wants implemented, like free buses for working class people and a chicken in every pot?
So chicken in every pot. Yeah. I have the same concerns about Zohran that I have with like Trump, is like they do a good job of identifying and talking about the problems. Can they actually solve them? So the truth is I don't know. Like I'm not an expert on New York City law, so I don't know how viable freezing the rent is, for example. I do know that I love the freeze the rent ad that they made for him, because it's really, really simple and good. I recommend people check it out. If I had your setup from this morning, I would pull it up right now and play it for people. So I'm still jealous of that. I'll be thinking about it all day. But I don't know. But there's going to be a question of his ability to be pragmatic and get stuff done. So is he going to try to do what Brandon Johnson has done in Chicago, which is show up to the city council and go, "I'm the mayor, I'm setting everything up, do what I want, otherwise I'm coming at you," which didn't work for him and didn't work for Lori Lightfoot, who was the mayor before him? Or is he going to be more like I hate to use this comparison, but like a Bill Clinton type, where he's going to show up and focus more on, what can I get done? What can I work with you on? What can we make progress on? I think if he's closer to that and he can take this coalition with him, that becomes very powerful, in my opinion. That's a lot of like what Michelle Wu does in Boston. She might not be able to get everything done that she wants, but if she can chip away and make that progress, because government moves slow, he's just going to have to bring people with him. And he's not going to be able to like drag them with him. He's going to have to work with them, especially in New York.
Do you think Cuomo's out?
I don't know. If I were Cuomo, I'd be done. But Cuomo's also kind of like a wounded bird. He's like more dangerous now. He has nothing to lose. So to a certain degree, it's like, should I just do it and then become an anti-democratic candidate and just start talking about what the Democratic Party has become? I could see him turning that into a punditry career, where he writes the book and just becomes like a sort of a dangerous figure outside of it. Kind of what Corinne Jean-Pierre is doing right now.
Yeah. I could also
And
see him just going totally rogue and just, I mean, if this sort of sets him free, you said like a wounded bird, then he could do some damage. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
Cuomo is kind of like Trump. Like he's more chaotic and erratic and dangerous when he's hurt. And I don't know what he'll do. And I don't know if him getting in is good for Adams or bad for Adams, because I could also see him pulling a lot of the votes that Adams might get, and then Zohran winning a four-way. So I think his pollster's got an interesting job, if he still has his job, frankly.
Yeah, I think. Look, I wish all of them would get it because it's really fun and it's good content. I'm just saying because I would love to cover it. It would be crazy.
What's that meme? It's bad for the country, but it's tremendous content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. So listen, you said that you were jealous of my setup. What does that mean? I can play.
Yeah, when you were on earlier, you were streaming and you had like 3 or 4 people on, and you were able to like throw up that New York Post.
Where have you been? Have you never watched our show?
I have. I just hadn't I wasn't paying attention, I guess. I usually have you on in the background.
Look, we do. I think our content or our show on our channel rivals network television. You should see the network news coverage. You should see what we did for the protest. America Fights Back. I mean, it was me, Joy Reid, and Jim Acosta, and we had people from all over the country, and with just a small skeleton crew. And if I worked at a network or a cable news place, and I was a producer or a manager, I'd be like, oh shit. They're coming for us.
I also want to be clear. I hadn't seen it on Substack before. That was what I hadn't seen, because the way Substack's setup is, I can't add an image. Like you had to show me your phone just a second ago.
Oh yeah,
Here's that video. Yeah.
Yeah, we figured out how to do that.
Yeah.
We stream on all platforms. We stream on YouTube, we stream on Substack, we stream on Instagram, we stream on TikTok and Facebook. And everywhere the audience is. Someone said, don't forget Jolly and Michael Fanone. See, they're watching. Yeah. So why do you think then, if you're watching, because you watch us, and I'll just say we are very proud that we just got to 750,000, 250,000,
that's awesome.
750,000 folks of subscribers. Why do you think that is? What do you think is going on as someone who is a political observer and you watch the media? Why do you think we're having such success on the channel?
Well, I think that our institutions are broken, right? Let's just sort of start there, right? And one of those institutions is the traditional media and the way that they have tackled it as entertainment politics, right? And then a lot of folks have now kind of rolled over for Trump. ABC in particular, I think, has rolled over for Trump probably more than anybody. Maybe CBS too, to a certain degree, with that whole 60 Minutes debacle with the Kamala Harris interview, which was really silly. But I think people are struggling with what is truth and what's not. Who do I trust? Who do I not trust? And so they're following personalities, and all the marketing research that's got into it is like people follow people, not brands. And so I think that people are following Don Lemon because they trust you to help them make sense of what the hell is going on in the world right now. I think the people who follow me trust me to help them understand the political side of that through the lens of being a Democratic strategist, because I'm a generally no bullshit guy. I don't have much of an agenda outside. I just like to hear the sound of my own voice. And so, but I think people are interested in that. And what they don't want is a view of the world that is fully filtered through Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and corporate-owned entities and billionaires, because they're trying to control us through algorithms and through the media. And if you look, like Peter Thiel right now is building this massive media empire right now, which he's going to use to push people towards where he wants politics to go. And he's a very savvy operator. He's kept himself out of this mess for the most part. But something worth watching. I think the other thing here too is, you and I are real human beings. Like, we're authentic and interesting, and we're having good conversation, and we don't get mad at each other when we disagree. It's just, it feels like community building too.
Yeah. I think people watch you because you're handsome. That's it.
I wish I was handsome. I wish. I'm a New York 6, like a Chicago 8, maybe.
That is hilarious. I love it. No, you look. Check out. Will you check out? And everybody else on here, check out. I just posted something on the Substack about this very thing, and you mentioned the exact same thing that I said. To bet on yourself, and that we were always taught in institutions when I worked there that you're never bigger than the brand or whatever. Yeah. And okay, somewhat. But I think talent and authenticity, you cannot really measure that and what it's bigger than or whatever. And I agree with you. People are following personalities and not brands anymore. So go check it out. It is called Bet on Yourself. Bet on yourself what this year has taught me. It's on Substack right now. Mike, any parting words about what happens here in New York City or in politics? Or
Well, one, Lisa Thompson just said she's from Nebraska, and that makes me a Nebraska 11. I grew up in Nebraska. I'm a Nebraska 20. Okay, I don't want to hear any of that. It's underselling me, overselling the people of Nebraska there for a minute. God love all my family.
What am I then? A New York what?
You're New York 10. You're 10 out of 10 in New York, man.
Come on now.
10 out of 10. Come on. I got at least kiss your ass while we're live.
Oh, this is getting weird. All right, Mike, what else? Final parting words.
No, I think it was a really interesting race last night. I think that everybody who worked on Zohran's race, who volunteered for it, should be really proud of themselves. And I think, again, to me, the divide in the Democratic Party, the divide in our politics, period, is between people who actually give a shit about you and don't give a shit about you. And we have a lot of leaders who are inauthentic, who are out for themselves. Donald Trump's the most corrupt president in American history. People are sick of it. The Democrats feel weak. They feel disconnected from the day-to-day. And I think for a guy like Zohran to push forward with so many disadvantages, especially on the cash front and the name recognition front against Cuomo, and win the way that he did is impressive. And I think there are lessons to be learned for Democratic candidates across the country. And if they don't learn them, they're going to lose.
Mike Nellis. See you next time. Same bat channel, same bat time, same bat channel. See you later.
That's right.
Thank
we
you.
are live now we should just tell this to everybody. We're live now every week at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, 1 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you follow Mike Nellis, and it's just under Mike Nellis, Nellis. Make sure you follow us as well. Become a member or paid subscriber. Become a subscriber to our channel. And I just want to tell you, make sure Mike watched me this morning at 10 a.m. I'm live 10 a.m. Eastern time, usually on YouTube. Sometimes I'll put it on Substack so you guys can see it and know that we are there. I'm going to continue to put it on Substack for a little bit so that folks can watch. And then I'm live at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Substack as well as on YouTube and on all the other platforms. So make sure you check it out, become a member, support independent media. It's where it's at right now. Mike, I'll see you later. Thank you very much, sir.
See you soon. Thanks, Tom.
Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never, ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.